Started. Welcome to the official meeting for this week for Black Box Society.
Yay!
First things first, propane is running. That's very tiny and squished. I just added the slide like not even 2 seconds ago.
Gotcha.
That's the IP it's running on. If you connect the propane net and go visit that IP, you'll see the scoreboard in your web browser and all the IPs that you are free to attack on those boxes. So have fun with that if you want to. Otherwise, let's move on to content. Alright, so first we have some announcements. We are lined up for some guest speakers later on this semester. We may have 1 or 2. We're definitely going to have 1, but we may have 2 and finish it out. But we'll see. We're anticipating one of them to come in. It's actually a pen tester that our Secretary Bex knows, who's going to come down and talk to us. And hopefully he's pretty cool.
Awesome.
And all that kind of stuff. I'm going to kind of do a preliminary talk lead into that today. So there we go. SGA funds, we requested some funds. They technically got them. I say they're pending. We technically got them. We're going through some debacle with UITS, so there's some hardware stuff. We're working with Michael Fargree's stuff that's out there. We'll hopefully resolve it sometime after spring break. But we will hopefully get those in. We'll have our server funds at that point. We'll be able to reimburse some of our members who are going to some conferences, and we'll also be able to hopefully buy some new toys for the club, which would be awesome. So that's what we're anticipating. Otherwise, go enjoy your spring break after this. Drink all the booze, hack all the things. I'm probably going to be sleeping. Alright, so let's move into our topics for the day. First thing is the Noob 101. So we used to do, last semester, I did this thing called the Noob Challenge, where I go over a very easy challenge to kind of get people into the idea of CTFs and into these new concepts. Well, changing it to Noob 101, big difference. But because it's not always going to be a CTF related thing. It may be a tip or a trick or some fundamental concept that's important to understand that I'll go over. Today it is CTF related. We're going to go over one of the CTF challenges here in just a second. But that's kind of what to expect in future meetings if we don't have like a guest speaker or something. Or even if we do, I may still include this quick thing. Alright, so today we're going to be talking about encoding. So we are going to be solving the Based Mario challenge from our Box CTF on blackboxsociety.org. If you're not already signed up on that playing, that's the URL to it. So go make an account, have fun, solve some cool challenges for points. The category is cryptography, but this particular challenge isn't actually cryptography. Encoding isn't the same thing as cryptography. So like the slide says, encoding is like a translation. The data is meant to be usable and reversed. And encryption is similar, but if data is encrypted, it's not meant to be reversed. It's intended to be used as confidentiality unless you're authorized to decode it later. But in this case, when we're talking about encoding, what we have is supposed to be retrievable. We're supposed to be able to get that back fairly easily. You just have to know what type of encoding it is. So let's do the challenge. So if you log into the Box CTF, you'll see in our crypto challenge sections, we have quite a few challenges. And the first one here is called Based Nintendo. Now, this is going to be a free flag for those of you who don't have any points on our CTF yet. So you came to the meeting, you get the free flag. So our challenge says, we intercepted a message from someone with the handle 01RAM. It seems to be encoded with some strange algorithm. Can you decipher it? So we got this little string. Now, when we're talking about base64 encoding, there are usually some telltale signs that something is base64 encoded. Namely, a double equals at the end. In this case, we don't see that. So we don't have like some quick glancing that we can do. But we can also tell that it's not like an MD5 hash. We can also tell that it's not like a Caesar cipher or something like that, because it just doesn't look the same if we're familiar with that. If you're not familiar with that, go look those things up.
It looks like there's a little hint though.
But there is a little hint. You're right.
The best console ever made.
The best console ever made.
Well, obviously that's the Nintendo 64.
There we go. But based, here's our hint. So we've got encoded message, based Nintendo. That's your kind of hint to what's going on here. You don't have to tell double equals. Well, how do you decode something with base64? It's really easy. There's about 70 different ways you can do it, probably more. One of my favorite ways is this website that has a lot of things called hex to ASCII. Go here and do it. And it offers a lot of things from hex encoding, binary encoding, all that kind of stuff. You can decode and translate across different stuff. It's probably not going to load, so I'm not going to show that. Instead, I'm going to show you a nifty command line tool that's built into most Linux operating systems, especially if you're using like Kali or something by default. So if we echo out our string here and pass it into the base64 command. And we give it the -D flag. We get -D meaning decode this. And we get the flag. Cool. And our flag is "It's me, Mario." It's really simple. So all we did was translate translate this and decode it from base64. Base64 is really that. There's just a fundamental thing, something that you should recognize and see. It's a really basic thing. So that's kind of what, if you've never seen these new things, that's all these are. There's really simple fundamental things that you may or may not have seen before. So now we can go take our flag that we've solved and place it in our key. Submit. We've got our points. And that's also how you do the CTF. So if you've never seen a CTF, this is how the CTFs work. There's a category of challenges, in this case our crypto category. Challenge, you solved it, get the flag, submit it for points. So it was also kind of an introduction to CTFs if you've never seen those as well. So cool, that's our new challenge. Yep. Alright. So the next topic is we're going to do an introduction to pen testing. Like I said, we're going to have a nice professional pen tester coming in, hopefully, to talk to us about stuff. So I want to kind of give you guys an introduction. Before I do that, I'll talk about ethics. We haven't talked about ethics this semester. I like to talk about ethics at least once a semester. And I've also gotten dinged on ethics recently, so we're talking about ethics today. So when it comes to offensive security, it's very important to understand quite a few things. And in the case of pen testing specifically, when we're talking about ethics, scope and permission is important. Scope kind of coincides with permission, so permission is more important. Not everything, but most of the time when you are conducting and doing the activities, using the tools that we're using, it's not really legal unless you have permission to do so. So whenever you're playing propane, you have my explicit permission to go and hack those boxes any way you want. Any kind of exploits against them, they're made for that. That's what they're for. However, you can't just go and try to attack a computer at CSU. You'll probably get expelled. That's not real smart. Don't do that. It's not ethical either. It doesn't belong to you. You don't have permission to do that. It's just not morally correct to do that.
It's also against federal law. So.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the whole
There's a federal law against what's the wording? Accessing a computer you don't own without permission.
Sure, and not only are like the laws and everything in place, but what's right and wrong is more important. Because some of the laws are kind of outdated. They still apply. They still affect you.
That particular one has the problem that if you try to trace back an attack, that's technically violating it too.
But yeah, so understanding what's right and wrong about what you're doing is most important before you go and do something. And if you don't know, here's my general rule of thumb: if you don't know if you're allowed to do it, don't do it. Yeah, you're better off asking. In this case, it's not better to ask forgiveness than permission unless you're doing for sure research. Now there's some caveats but for us that are less experienced and new to this kind of stuff, always err on the safe side. Always err on the side of caution until you've got more experience and understand what you're doing. Especially if you're learning these new tools and you don't understand what all these flags are doing, and they may be doing things that you didn't intend to do. Maybe you run it what was supposed to be a harmless, completely legal scan against something that won't cause any harm normally, but you tacked on these flags that somebody told you to do, and it maybe enumerates the system and tries some exploits against it. You didn't know that. Because you didn't know that and you tried it on a system that you weren't allowed to, it's still your fault. So always make sure you're testing in a safe environment and building up your skills before you go about doing these things. That's my spiel. Let's move on to the fun stuff. So pen testing. If you're not familiar with penetration testing, we call it pen testing. This is an authorized or simulated attack against security infrastructure. It's not really simulated. Usually it's an actual attack. They say simulated because it's not like somebody malicious trying to attack you. It's you're testing things out. So usually it deals with our IT infrastructure, finding vulnerabilities in systems that will offer unintended actions to occur, or outdated software, or anything like that. That's what your penetration test is looking for, so that way you can improve security in your system. Once the testers found a flaw, they report to you what the flaw is, what kind of damage the hack would cause, and if they're really good, they can help you provide you with solutions on how to remediate it. And so that's super helpful. It can also be physical though. You can try to gain unauthorized access to the building, maybe get in the server room. So I know banks like that pen test because they don't want people to get in the vaults. And they also have their own IT infrastructure. So usually their pen test can be a mixture of a physical trying to get in the building, but also a still from the IT infrastructure side, once you're in the building, you start trying to do human interface device attacks, or find passwords, or maybe plant something on the network so you have remote access once you leave. All kinds of different stuff like that. So, but the goal of the test is both things: to test your security infrastructure to make sure you're able to adequately not only comply with whatever regulations you have to comply with, but also keep your data safe, and your customer safe and your business safe. So it's just a wise decision overall. So a lot of places do pen testing for this purpose. It's an awesome career path, but it takes a lot of skill. So, like I said, not everyone can get paid to break things, but anyone, the reason it takes skill is that anyone can run all these scans and these tools, but you have to understand the methodology of what you're doing and understand how things work to be really good at this stuff. I'm still an amateur at this stuff. I'm blessed to be able to get paid to do some of this stuff. Now I do testing professionally now. It's not my only job, but that's something I get to do. But I still have a lot to learn, But even with that, because I have that foundation of understanding the methodology, which we're going to go over, so hopefully you guys can have that instilled in you as well. Using that and applying that moving forward helps a lot, and you can grow based on that, rather than just throwing scans and tools and stuff. All right, so let's dive in. So the basics are what phases, the phases of the pen test. So phases of pen test really just depend on what you ask. In general, it's just the methodology of how you conduct a pen test. And it's usually described in 5 phases. If you Google it online, you'll Google what are the 5 phases of pen testing. Like 30 million things will pop up. And they're usually all generally the same thing. But if you see these 5 phases and it's described as a straight row, that's not necessarily wrong, but I think it makes more sense as a cycle. I'll explain that here. So let's look at an example of a diagram of the generic 5 phases of a pen test. So your first phase you start off with is actually reconnaissance, and this should have like an entry point arrow. But you start off with reconnaissance. This is your information gathering, whether you're gathering open source intelligence about the systems and company you're doing your test on, whether you're gathering information by scanning systems and finding what services are open, maybe looking for vulnerabilities and stuff. That's all part of reconnaissance. Scanning also kind of bleeds in there because you can do some of the scanning stuff in the reconnaissance phase, but your scanning phase is primarily actually looking for vulnerabilities and more in-depth scanning your system, not just doing recon on basic information. So you got information gathering and scanning to actually find potential vulnerabilities and problems. Once you've found something in your scanning phase, you can then use what you found to try to gain access, which leads us to our next point. You try all your attacks and the information you found lets you in, whether it's finding passwords, maybe finding vulnerability you can exploit, getting in the building, putting in a rubber ducky, whatever your medium is, you gained access. Once you've gained access, your goal is then to maintain access. You can do this in a number of ways. One of the big jokes in the security community with defensive security is your goal is always to get domain admin, especially on good old Windows domain controllers, because that gives you access to everything. So that's the big maintain access, but you don't always have to get domain admin. But basically rooting or getting administrative access is one way you can maintain access. Other ways, even if you can't do that, you can establish more shells and more backdoors to give yourself access. And also maybe create user accounts and hide user accounts in places, update configs, make it to where you can always get back into that machine. That's your next goal. After that, once you've done everything you want to do on that machine, you want to cover your tracks, or make sure it looks like you've never been there, or at least that they can't trace you back there. So you just clear deleting logs. It makes you hard to trace back, but it's obvious that you've been there. So while that is a strategy, you may want to consider other things you can do. A lot of the times, if you're lucky and the system's not logging every single thing, which yeah, if you're real lucky, the biggest thing you'll have to worry about is cleaning up whatever you put on the system. So if you've uploaded some malware, you've backdoor, or uploaded, or maybe installed something in memory and all that kind of stuff, there's techniques that you can use, like working in RAM. So when the system is rebooted, everything's wiped, stuff like that will help you cover your tracks after you establish access. Once you've done that, you start to cycle over. Say you're on a network of machines, you've got access to one, you've done all these cycles, you're still on this machine. Can you get to another machine from this one? Well, sure. Let's try to pivot from here. And you keep repeating the cycle. You don't always have to repeat the cycle. Maybe you only have one target. You can stop there. But if you do have multiple targets, which is often the case, you're often attacking a large network, you just repeat the process over and over and over again once you establish access to the box. In fact, you could even say apply this process to trying to gain administrative access to the box. Once you're on the box and you've gained access and you've done the rest of the steps, maybe you do more recon on that box to try to find a way to get a root privilege escalation, and then you repeat all the stuff in. You do more scans, you gain the access, you maintain the root, cover your tracks, repeat. So you can even layer this down and nest it into your process. But that's the generic phase. It's really simple, but it's really important because it gives you kind of a guideline to how you can go about doing stuff rather than just throwing scans at everything and hoping to get something back. It's a good, well-defined process. So that's just the basics of pen testing. And we're going to kind of try to practically apply this real quick against Metasploitable 2. So Metasploitable 2, we've talked about this before, is a vulnerable machine, has tons of vulnerabilities against it. We're going to apply the first 3 of the 5 phases. So we're going to do recon, we're going to do scanning, and we're going to maintain access. Or then we're going to gain access, but we're going to skip maintain and cover tracks just for the second time, because that's not really the point of this meeting. This is just an introductory for our hopeful guest speaker in the future. So let's dive in. Let's leave this up. That's not what I want. That's not what I want. Alright. So we've got our vulnerable machine up. Our recon here is going to be a simple nmap scan against this box. So we can do an nmap. We want to do quick scenario. I'm getting ahead of myself. We're attacking a company that hosts files. FTP is the biggest service. We know that we've done our open source intelligence, and they have FTP servers running on every single one of these machines. So we want to see if there's anything wrong with one of their FTP servers. So there's a light scan thing I'm going to do real quick. I'm going to scan my common FTP port to see if I can find anything else. I'm not looking for, not in my scanning phase yet. I'm not doing service enumeration or anything like that. Just seeing what I find from here. So I'm going to say in that, let's do a port scan. Only worry about port 21, and in this scenario, this is my IP. Okay, cool. Looks like we have an open FTP service. Well, now we have something we can kind of go after. So now we can kind of enter our scanning phase. So we're going to continue to use nmap, and we're going to detect service versions and see kind of what we find. And it's going to scan.
The Ethernet cable wasn't plugged in, so if you were having trouble with Ethernet.
Oh, that may be one. Yeah, that's fine. All right. So let's see. It sees that we've got some information here. We're going to run a little more scan. This is cool. We've got a FTP service version and all that kind of stuff, so we can do some research on that. I also want to get some operating system information if we can, so I can tap on the -O flag. So this nmap command, we've been over this before, but -P, we're specifying port, -SB, we're saying enumerate service versions, tell me what you can find out, and -O is give me the operating system. So it does same kind of stuff again. It tries to guess the operating system. It's pretty sure it's Linux. I'm pretty sure it's right. It can't tell me the exact thing though. It doesn't have enough information, and that's okay. This is enough for now. We can start here with the service version. So FTPD 2.3.4. Well, now we can start doing some research here. So search exploit is an awesome utility. If you've ever heard of exploit DB, this is the command line version of it. In fact, it's a lot quicker than having to deal with captchas and stuff on exploit DB. Highly recommend using this. This is a giant database of known public exploitable vulnerabilities. So if you just search for something you're looking for, would you look at that? We've got a backdoor command execution. It's actually a Metasploit module. So we can look at this Metasploit module and see what the code is and what it's doing. Do 17.191, not part of it. Load this up. Let me look at the core code here. Now, it says, this module exploits a malicious backdoor that was added in the FTP archive. This backdoor was introduced in this specific version on July 30th, 2011, and July 1st, 2011, according to all the information. So this is a backdoor that was built into the program. So it's a legitimate program. Somebody wrote a backend door into it. They got somehow slipped in. So we can kind of look at what's going on. Little history lesson, since I already know a lot about this one. This is a very popular, famous one, especially when Metasploitable 2 came out. All that's going on here, you can kind of see what's here. It connects the FTP service. It then does the user, inputs a username. There's a key thing that you see right here. You see this little smiley face? This exploit's nicknamed the smiley face backdoor. Because what you can do is you can go connect to the FTP service, type in whatever username you want, followed by a smiley face, hit enter, type in whatever password you want, hit enter, and then it will hang. And what it's doing is opening up a bind shell connection that's backdoor listening on port 6200. You connect that, and then you have a shell with whatever privileges that the backdoor is running at. I think it's actually, you usually get a root shell automatically. At least in this case it is. So that's all that's going on here. So we actually don't need to use this Metasploit module. It's good to have, and we can see what's going on here. If you're familiar with the Metasploit module syntax and familiar with Ruby, you could have figured that out. But since we don't really need that, and we can exploit manually, let's do that. So I'm going to start up a tmux session. So tmux is a super awesome window manager that everybody should use in terminals. So it's going to let me open multiple terminal windows. And what we're going to do here is connect to our FTP on localhost. And then we can type in whatever username we want, followed by a smiley face. And whatever password we want. Second. So let's see if it works. What we can do now is run an mmap scan again and look for
6200
for 21 and 6200. Seconds up. That's good for us. Let's go check on our thing. Alright, looks like everything's working. Now we can use our good old friend Encap or Netcap from last time and connect to. This is why this is the Swiss Army knife network tool. Next. So, on 6200, connect. We don't get any feedback. We have a shell. Yeah. A root shell. So we've compromised the box. Now there's a couple of neat tricks and stuff we can do here. One, this doesn't look like a very pretty shell, so let's make it pretty. We can check and see if Python is installed. Python is installed, so we can do a neat little trick where we can say python-c import pty/spawn /biz/h. And what this is going to do is give us a actual shell prompt. And I spelled that wrong. So I got that good. The other thing about not having a good shell is why you do this. Always upgrade your shell if you can. Because we wouldn't have been able to easily edit that. Make sure everything's okay before I make any bugs. Yay! Alright, so now we got a nice little shell prompt. But we can't do things like clear. Or maybe we can, and I'm an idiot. We don't have our tab auto. So there's another neat trick we can do. So I can hit Control-Z to background this. Do scy raw minus echo. And this will give me the ability to, once I foreground my session again, to do tab auto complete. So it's like we have a normal working shell. It's a lot more familiar. It's kind of like the shell we have here. Do that, foreground, and now we can say ls, and if you type in, hit tab, it'll auto complete. So now we have a much nicer shell than we have before. We got clear, we can go up and down and see our bash history. We can do that for. That's pretty cool. So we've kind of given ourselves better access. We've got our root shell, and we went through the first two phases, pin test. So that's why you follow those steps, because the more efficiently you follow those steps, the more information you gather, the more effectively you're able to exploit vulnerabilities which get to that base.
How do you find exploits that aren't on the public database?
You Google, and if there's not an exploit available, you can write one. But not everything's vulnerable, so you've got to do a lot of research there if you're trying to exploit a particular service that has more known vulnerabilities. So that's where research about that service would come in.
Gotcha.
So when you're on a pen test, you probably won't be doing that. But in your spare time, as a researcher, you would do that, and then when you go on your latest pen test, if you've got a new vulnerability that you can use, you found one. But generally speaking, unless it's already out there, you probably won't use it.
Hypothetical question. As a white hat, what do you do with a zero-day vulnerability? Do you publish it? Do you sell it? What?
It just depends on what you're into. I mean, me personally, if I were to discover some kind of zero-day vulnerability, I would probably go through the most responsible disclosure process I can. There's a lot of hoopla about what that may be.
I'm sure.
And for me, it would just depend on who the vendor is and how it affects them, how it affects people. So
Well,
lots of ifs, ands, and buts. But I would go through whatever I feel is the most responsible way to disclose that to them, and then publish some research about it, and throw up proof of concept code for everybody to use like everybody else does and share the love.
Gotcha.
A lot
That's how I
of
feel about it.
new companies coming out now are using bug bounty systems.
Bug bounties are a really good way to find vulnerabilities in specific systems like that. So cool, we're done with that. That was the super fun, fantabular stuff. With that, let's move on to the actual thing we're going to do today. So, file carving.
Question, actually about that. So you've gotten in there, you've got root access.
Yeah,
What does that buy you on that specific machine?
I can do whatever I want.
Well, I get that, but what sort of things might you want to do as an attacker?
Create account, and so that would be getting into the maintain access phase. I may want to create accounts, install some more services that I like, maybe set up some tools or logging, never mind, maybe I want to open up some network connections with the firewall. Just depends what you want to do, but you can do any of that.
Gotcha.
Those are some of the examples of what you could do.
Create a botnet.
Yes. Endless possibilities. Anything you can think of to do on the computer at that point, you can do.
Gotcha.
Very, very limitless there, unless there's like network stuff in the way. There's a whole other option. Alright, so file carving. Done with hacking boxes. We've been hacking boxes a lot lately. Let's talk about some other techniques. So, steganography is the concept of hiding secret data inside of non-secret data. You can think of maybe hiding a secret text that's colored differently and blends into an image, or you can even put files inside of files, which is what we're going to look at today.
I've actually played with that a little bit. You can add data to the end of a bitmap in such a way that it doesn't get read by the renderer. So the bitmap is slightly too large, but you have to have some concept of what the size of the bitmap should be for the dimensions to notice that there.
Yep, there's lots of different cool things you can do. And today, what we're going to do is, we've got our scenario. We're looking for the embarrassing picture of SpongeBob at the Christmas party. We've got a secret file from Patrick. And
He was kissing Squidward, wasn't he? I knew it.
He has hidden the file away. He's done with the little string box. He's gotten real sophisticated and hidden this inside the files. And in order for us to have access to it, we've got to find it. So what are some of the tools we're going to use to assist us in this file carving process? We're going to use a hex editor. We're going to observe file signatures and file type references, and Foremost is going to be one of our friends here as well. So quick reasons why we're going to be doing this. When we're talking about file carving, like I just mentioned, we're dealing with files inside of files. So opening up and being able to see the hex values, all the hexadecimal values, we're able to inspect the file and see things that we wouldn't normally see. If we open up the file, it may look like an image, but there may be more to it. And opening up in the hex editor will let us see some of that. Yeah, so pretty much all of that information. And at that point, we can use this concept of file signatures to look for evidence that there may be other types of files in the file we're looking at. Foremost is a buddy because it automatically carves files first. Doesn't work every time, but for the majority of cases, I always run Foremost first because it's a quick, easy tool that helps out a lot if the data you're looking at can be read by Foremost.
What was that one command that our speaker showed you that he did one that you could specify certain...
Yeah, so that's another technique as well when Foremost doesn't work. We're not going to go into that, Dave, it's a little bit more technical, but you'll be able to...
What was the command name?
So XXD is the command line where it's uhex, and you can pipe in the output from XXD. You can format it to the way where it's only feeding over the hex, and then you can use the ed command to specify specific address points and stop and carve out a file from those specific address points.
Is it easier to see these simple files like text files than stuff that is secretly actually a zip file like .docx and .xlsx?
Yeah, it's a lot easier because when it comes to simple files like text files, you can see the text just sitting inside script.
Yeah. You don't have to track. It's not actually a full directory structure.
Yeah, you don't have to find the file tethers and stuff to indicate that there's another file. You'll just see the text. So yeah, it is significantly easier to spot that kind of stuff. And hopefully we'll get to see that. So let's get into it. So we've got our secret box here. So let's open up our terminal. Go to our desktop. This will be our working space. So let's run a file on secret.box. Looks like it's an ELF file. So this is a binary program of some sort. If we run our xxd command, like we're talking about, we can kind of see the hex output. You see this kind of weird string at the bottom. It's kind of hard to read. So my favorite thing to do on binaries before I try to run anything, before I'm hopping in a reverse engineering program, I always run strings first. Always run strings. I can't emphasize that enough. That's 3 points at every competition. Run strings on first.
What do strings do?
Strings gives you all the strings of a file.
Yeah.
So in this case, you can see, oh, this kind of looks like that base64 thing from earlier. Looks like a big chunk of base64. So we're gonna just scroll up here, and yeah, if you've ever seen an ELF binary ran through strings, that's not normal. That's not something you normally see. That is definitely an anomaly. You see stuff like this, but this not so much. So this seems like it's abnormal.
So we got something piggybacking.
Before we dive into that, I don't usually advise, even if it's from a competition where you trust it, don't advise running binaries from a competition. Always throw it in a VM. But in this case, I wrote this, so I know it's okay. So we run it. Got a funny message. Hopefully everybody likes SpongeBob. Alright, so what we can try to do is run foremost on this. It's kind of pointless, but it may give us a cheater's way to do stuff, and it didn't. So that auto doc test, nothing else that just means we didn't find anything. So, but we do already know that this file has what looks to be a base64 encoded string in here. So we're going to try to get that out. All we have to do, go up to where that starts, and we'll copy it real quick. Kind of a long chunk of string, and we'll get out of here. This, hopefully Patrick doesn't take us through too many layers here. I don't think he will. Alright, so we'll do is one nano first, paste this into a text file, save it, and then we'll run our best friend base64 SD command to decode this file, and it looks weird. It's very weird. So what we can do is pipe this into xxd, because this looks like some data. So we can pipe it into xxd and get a better idea of what's going on here. So, come looking at here, we got this 7Z. Well, since I've got some experience, I know this is a 7-zip file. But how can we figure that out? Well, your best friend is Gary Kessler. Gary Kessler has a wonderful website. It has a list of every file signature that I could ever think of. So we're going to go to our friend Gary Kessler's website and get some help so we can verify the file signatures. My internet will work. There we go. Gary Kessler. File signatures. Alright, so we go look at zip. This is gzip 7zip. So we can confirm that this is 7zip file by looking at the first couple of bytes here. So we're looking for 377A, BC, AF, 271C. We go back, 377A, BC, AF, 271C. I'm pretty sure it's a 7zip file. So what we can do now is take that base64 command and write this file out to a file. We'll call this thing.7zip. Alright, and we can run our file command on thing.7zip. Looks like it's a 7zip file. We can run 7zip extract thing.7z. Looks like it extracted. Cool. We got secret.txt is what was hidden in that 7zip file. So let's see what's in secret.txt. More base64. Alright, well that's fast. So, since this is just one big old base64 file, that's all the base64 stuff coming back. So it's good to know and be able to recognize it really quick. What we can do now is say base64.sd secret.txt, just like we did before. More data, looks real weird. Alright, so we'll keep to our method back from xxd and see what's going on. So, JFIF. Alright, well what's JFIF? Let's go back to our friend Gary Kessler. Looks like that may be a JPEG image. Alright, so FFD8 FFE0. Alright, that's looking pretty good. So let's do that. Maybe this is our image. Maybe we found our image of SpongeBob at Christmas party. So if we do a basics4, pipe this out to please.jpg. We get an image on the desktop. Let's go look at that image real quick. Alright, let's find the secret image of SpongeBob at Christmas party. But maybe now we can try to run Foremost again on this image. Maybe it can carve out the image for us. This is, if Foremost can do this, it saves us a lot of hard work of manually going and finding where a file header starts and carving it out. So let's keep your fingers crossed. We've got our output.txt here on our desktop. Let's go look at what's up. Hey, JPEG folder. Oh, there's our embarrassing photo of SpongeBob after Christmas party. So we had to go through quite a few layers, and you can see how many different types of data can be stored in some files. Started with a program that actually ran, functioned like a normal program, had text depending on the end of it. That text turned out to be a 7-zip file that contained more text. We unzipped that, we had a text file with more basics4, had a JPEG, and that JPEG had another JPEG inside of it. So we went through a couple different layers there and had to use a couple different techniques to get here. That's the process of file carving. Those are all the kinds of different techniques that you may go about doing it, apart from manually carving out the file. Manually carving out the file would be as simple as opening this into a real hex editor. XXD has been our hex editor here. And finding out where that piece of that file header starts and copying it all out and saving it to a new file. And that's how you do it. It's the same process. It's really simple. It just takes a lot of time. So that's great. That's why it's great when Foremost works. But there, like Tyler asked earlier, there are a couple techniques to not do that, which are really smart. I'm not prepared to demonstrate those today, but if you want to look it up, you can look at file carving using XXD and DD. And if you do that, you can use the XXD command to format your file that you're looking at in a way where it's only the hex that you're looking at, and you can pipe that in the DD command. It specifies specific points in the file where you want to start reading in and start writing out. And if there's a chunk of file, it could be a file in the middle of a file, and you can find where it starts and ends, specify those points, and DD will strip out just that data for you to the file. So much better than manually carving out if it's a large file. So yeah, but that's like the basic intro to file carving. That's kind of all there is to it. It's really cool. It's one of my favorite things to see in CTF challenges personally. And it's also really neat because it's a method of data exfiltration. So where this can apply in real world scenarios, if you've got compromised and it doesn't look like the hacker really took anything and you can't figure out what they were after, it doesn't look like anything left, but then you see that Susan's email is sending out some weird cat photos to some strange email out on the ether. Maybe you should go look at that cat photo and see what's inside. Because maybe the hacker's storing data in that, sending it out. So that's where file carving is very important. It's also great with kind of bundle with malware analysis as well. You can kind of unpack malware even further, although reverse engineering is more helpful there than this. But it is a helpful skill to know. So that's file carving. That's kind of all we have for today. So go enjoy your spring break.
Thank you.
Now, to do like Dr. V says, drink heavily, make bad decisions.